just because on a purely talent basis, he's like a top 10 NFL quarterback. He's a very good football player, and then he's got two amazing weapons.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football Freaks. I'm Jason. He's Vaz. And today, Vaz is going to give us 5 late round sleepers or value picks for the upcoming redraft season in fantasy football. But before we get to that, I do want to quickly let you know that we have selected those that we want to be a part of our best ball league, or the Listeners League. And what I'm going to do is those that have been selected, we are going to put you in the descriptions below of this video, as well as maybe next week's as well. We're going to give you time to check out your name to see that you've been included. And we'll also send you an email as well, hopefully to notify you. And then you will be a part of our upcoming draft. If you are on the standby list, don't completely count yourself just out yet, because there is a possibility that those involved that were selected do not respond in time or are unable to participate. So even if you are on the standby list, hang tight, and hopefully we'll get you in to be a part of our best ball league as well. All right, without any further ado then, Vaz, let's get into your 5 sleepers and value picks, late rounders for the upcoming redraft season. Who is the first guy you want to talk about?
Okay, so I'm trying to start with the guys that start with somebody who's a little bit higher in the ADP, and that's DeAndre Swift, who's currently going 60 overall at the 5-6 turn in a 12-team format. Listen, I really want a piece of that Chicago Bears offense. And I always say follow the money. They gave DeAndre Swift 3 years, $24 million, $8 million a season. So they want to use him as the feature back. I think that's clear. I don't think Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson are particularly talented enough to steal any meaningful touches from him. I expect him to be on the field quite a bit, over 50% of the total touches, including all the time on third downs and in the red zone. I think he's a very good player. I think he's been underutilized for his career, and I think he's going to be given the ball a lot on this team, which is going to be a very good offense. And I do want a piece of this offense. So I really like his price point. He's going as a back end RB2, and I think he's got a very good chance to finish as an RB1 in fantasy football. So I really love DeAndre Swift, and I'm going to be grabbing him up at the end of round 5 if I can.
Yeah, I love the selection. You know, I've always been very high on DeAndre Swift. I've had him in a couple of leagues ever since he came out as a rookie. So he's been a part of my dynasty teams for some time. I was kind of frustrated, obviously, with his time with the Lions as well as with the Eagles. But now that he's, the main guy in Chicago, I'm looking forward to him certainly having a very good season. I don't think the Bears were the best landing spot, because I think that was either Baltimore or Philadelphia where Saquon and Henry ended up. But I think Chicago is still a very solid place to be going. Like you mentioned, they've got a very explosive, high-octane offense, and I certainly look forward to him having a very good season. And if he ends up being like your second or maybe even third running back, then yeah, I think that's going to be a solid team that you have for sure. Let's talk about the second guy that you want to talk about.
Okay, so the second guy on my list is currently going in round 12, and that's Matthew Stafford. He's going as the QB 20 overall. And I wanted to include a quarterback, even though it's not necessarily too sexy to talk about quarterbacks, because I really like going with kind of a late quarterback strategy in redraft leagues. I think there's a lot of value to be had in going with this strategy, not really worrying about quarterbacks. I find that a lot of owners draft quarterback too high. So Matthew Stafford is a guy I can count on. I know I can count on him, and he's going as the 20th overall quarterback, which seems criminal to me. Just because on a purely talent basis, he's like a top 10 NFL quarterback. He's a very good football player, and then he's got 2 amazing weapons in Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. I don't know if he's ever had weapons this good, right? Probably not in his career. I mean, he's had Kelvin Johnson, but when he had Kelvin Johnson, he was throwing for 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns, right? We've seen him do it. We know he's capable of it. There were times last year when I felt like every time Matthew Stafford stepped on the field, it was like inevitable they were going to score a touchdown. Like, that's how dangerous he looked at times. I know he's a very good player, and I'm very comfortable placing him in my starting lineup. I think that Rams team has gotten worse. They've lost some pieces, some very important pieces on especially on defense. So I think they're going to be involved in a few more shootouts. Matthew Stafford is going to be asked to throw the ball more than he was last year because they're going to be losing some games. I think we've got a healthy Cooper Kupp. I think the sky's the limit for Matthew Stafford in that offense. I think he's going to be a very good player. And going in round 12, like if you go with a late quarterback strategy, this is a guy I'm absolutely targeting.
Yeah. I had been low on Stafford in dynasty leagues. And the reason I was low on him was because he didn't seem to be committed to be playing for the next 4 or 5 years, sort of a thing. There were question marks about how long he would continue to play. But recently, he got a new contract that he wanted, right? Like he was trying to push for an extension. So just that little bit of show as to show me that no, I want to continue playing for until who knows how long. That was enough to kind of convince me that okay, no, no, no. I mean, this guy wants to play, and like you mentioned, he certainly has the talent. He's got the talent around him as well. So yeah, certainly for redraft leagues, I am totally in for a guy like Stafford. So love the pick. Who was your next guy?
Okay, my next guy is a guy I've talked about in the past, and that's Rashee Rice. Okay, he's currently the laugh it up, Jason. He's currently the wide receiver 36 overall, which in my opinion is crazy. Okay, because I feel like he's got back end wide receiver one upside, especially now that Hollywood's been injured and is going to miss like the first, probably 4 or 5 games of the season. I think he's the number one option in the passing game now, ahead of Travis Kelce. I think Travis Kelce's best years are behind him. And as the season rolled on last year, we saw that like Rashee Rice was becoming the number one target. I looked at his stats from last season. He had 92 receptions for almost 1,000 yards in 16 games played. But that's not the whole story. He didn't have 70% snaps in any given game until week 14. He wasn't really used as like a starter in that offense until halfway through the season. He didn't get a fair shake early on because he was a rookie. This year, he's coming in as the wide receiver one. It's looking more and more probable that he might not be suspended this season. His suspension might come at the end of the season. Maybe he'll be suspended for next year. So I think you don't even really maybe have to worry about that. I think with Hollywood going down, there's more targets for him. I think he's going to be seeing upwards of 10, 12 targets per game in that offense, which is, he's got the best quarterback throwing him the football. Xavier Worthy's a rookie. We don't really know what he's going to bring. I think Rashee Rice is going to be the main option there. He's going as the wide receiver 36. You can get him at the end of round 7 in drafts, and I think he's got clear back end wide receiver one upside. So I love taking Rashee Rice at that range.
Okay. I have been anti-Rice for quite some time, but certainly the injury to Hollywood Brown is going to affect that. So yeah, I mean, I definitely do see an upswing with that. And I think it all comes down to his suspension, right? That's the big question. And what's taking so long with that? I mean, I'm curious when we're going to get a number or a timeline, but yeah, I guess until we do, I'm still just going to be a question mark on it. I guess if you get that sort of late value and you know that he's going to be there for your team in the playoffs, that's the most important part, right? Assuming that your team can make it to the playoffs, then yeah, I don't have a problem having him on your team. But yeah, I do wonder when we're going to get that news. But yeah, I guess I don't have a problem, especially with the Brown injury. But let's move on to your fourth player.
Okay. I will say that even if Rashee Rice does get suspended, I don't expect it to be very long, just a game or two. So I'm not even going to worry about that when it comes to. I'm not going to bake that into his draft position in fantasy drafts. I just like the guy and I want him on my team.
Fair enough.
Okay, so number 4 is another guy we've talked about, and that's Chase Brown, going as the RB 38, round 9 in football and fantasy football drafts this season.
Wow.
Yeah, RB 38. Yeah. I guess, people still think that the presence of Zach Moss is hindering his value. You know what? I will admit, I expect that to be a committee, fully expect that to be a committee, but we know what Zach Moss is, and he's not a receiving running back. Chase Brown is going to get the third down work. So even if they are like alternating drives, maybe Chase Brown gets one series and then Zach Moss gets the next, even if that happens, which I kind of expect as the season progresses, Chase Brown will get the majority of the touches. even the rushing touches, because I think he's the better player, the more electric player. But let's say that they do split carries evenly. Chase Brown, we know, is going to be the third down running back in what is a very good offense, who wants to throw the ball. And we know that Joe Burrow does use his running backs in the passing game, right? So I really like Chase Brown at this price point. I think he's got, clear RB2 upside going as like an RB, late RB3 in fantasy draft. So I
Yeah.
really like this price point.
38. That is crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have my list in front of me, but I would think that I probably have him like around somewhere between 25 and 30. I would think certainly like a top 32 in terms of he's going to be better than some starters, I would imagine. So yeah, that is just criminal. Nothing more to say for me. Who's
Yeah.
the last guy that you want to talk about?
Okay, the last guy is a deep sleeper, and that's Ray Davis from Buffalo. Okay, he's going as the RB56. Okay, so this guy you can grab, like round 15, round 14, like the back end of your draft, right? When mostly insignificant players are going. Um, so listen, in Dynasty, I wasn't big on him because he's turning 25 this year. But let's think about that a second. For redraft, the Bills drafted a running back in round 4 who's turning 25. They mean to use him, right? They drafted an old running back because they like the guy, and his tape is very, very good. He's a bowling ball of a running back. He's 220 pounds at 5'8", but he's quick. He's agile. He punishes people on contact. He reminds me of like a Maurice Jones-Drew. I think he's very talented. In my opinion, he's a better runner than James Cook is. James Cook is 190 pounds. Like the guy is light, right? He cannot handle a large workload. So I expect that this will be a committee, and then I think that Davis is going to get the goal line touches, he's going to have to earn the hard yardage. And I think as the season progresses, the Bills are going to like what they have in him. And I think he might start to earn more and more carries as the season progresses. So I really like this as a late round sleeper in fantasy drafts.
I have no problem with that. I'm certainly one of those guys that's very low on James Cook. So the same way that I'm low on Cook, then to have whoever is backing him up and is next in line, especially if he goes down with an injury, then yeah, I would say that if you get a guy like Davis really late, then it can certainly pay off for very, very big dividends.
Now, I can't do it for you. The inches we need are everywhere around us. What are you gonna do?
Like! Subscribe! Anyone else that you wanted to talk about at all, or anything that you wanted to mention that you forgot to mention about any of the guys that we talked about so far?
Oh, no, I think we got it all covered. I'll just say that, as I said before, I like going that late quarterback strategy in drafts. So Stafford is a guy that I'm targeting, as a QB20. Another guy would be like Kirk Cousins, who's going as a QB18. I think there's a lot of good value. Maybe even Aaron Rodgers going as a QB21. So I think there's a lot of good quarterbacks in that range where if you want to grab two of those guys rather than spending a high pick on a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes, I really like that strategy.
Okay, there you go. Once again, reminder that if you wanted to be in our best ball league and you wrote in, remember to check out the descriptions below here and your email to see if you got chosen for our league as well. Otherwise, thanks for joining us today. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time for another edition of Fantasy Football Freaks.